If there is the one thing that I had absolutely no clue about but had learned since starting my YouTube channel, it would be that many Brits do hate London. Now, I'm not just talking about lifestyle preference here. The feeling that I get from reading all these comments are just that there are extreme dislikes towards London and sometimes hate. And honestly, this came as a surprise to me. As someone who lived in Bangkok, the capital city, and also living outside of Bangkok, there were also times that I visited Indonesia and Malaysia and worked with people who are living outside of the capital cities, and hating the capital cities is something that I never really heard of. Now, I fully understand that this is quite a controversial subject. I can actually imagine someone typing angrily in the comment section now. But hear me out, I am not in any way invalidating or validating your feelings towards London. If you feel certain ways towards London, it doesn't really bother me, because although I am happily living in London, at the end of the day, I am not originally from here. And as I'm still learning all things British, I just really want to understand why this is the case. And I'm just here to talk to you guys of what I've learned after speaking to people and doing some research. Drizzle, that's my coffee. Before getting into the why, I think it is probably worth mentioning what London is like today for context. Unless you've been living under the rock, you know that London is the capital city of England and also a capital city of the UK. It is very, very multicultural, and it is also the world's leading financial hub. But just like any capital city in the world, London is not a full representation of what England or the UK is like, which leads nicely into my first point, which is London dominates global perception of Britain. Now, I can really imagine how annoying it must be if you're from York, for example, and every time you go on a holiday, you tell people you're from York and people tend to think that you're from a place like this. And in my experience as someone who's not originally from the UK, this is very, very true. People who live outside of the UK, and especially people who live outside of Europe and never been to the UK, doesn't really understand, let's say, that the UK is consisted of multiple countries, England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, and they just don't understand that these places are different. And I think it's kind of similar to the way that people think about Thailand, I suppose. When you talk about Thailand, people think about beaches, and when they actually come to Bangkok, they probably go, because they probably never thought that a city could be that busy, because they never really had that perception in mind. And take me, for example, although I have traveled a fair bit as a child, but growing up, when I thought about England, all I could think about was really the red buses and red telephone box and obviously the Queen. And even for my mum, she has actually been to the UK twice already, and the last time I spoke to her, she said to me, I really want to come to the UK to do the doctorate research so that I can be close to you. I'm thinking of going to the University of Scotland. Is that near London? Mum, it's a different country. Now, the second point is something that's not very easy for me to talk about. It is a hard pill to swallow, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
But the second reason is because it's just full of foreigners. Yes, everyone knows that it is true. London is very multicultural. If you live in London, you can forget about the monoculture society. Walking along the streets, you can see restaurants from all nationalities. You can see people speaking different languages, and you can see people with all shades of colors. I think many foreigners do find comfort in London. For many who has lived in big cities before moving to the UK, including myself, London seems to be a natural move because it's also a big city, capital city, and there are many who decide to settle in London because there are already communities of their heritage that settled in London previously, so it makes life easy for them. And because everyone has different appetites when it comes to diversity, and that is exactly where the problem lies. Take Newham in East London, for example. Although the white British are still the largest ethnic group, some people do feel like that Cockney culture is slowly disappearing due to to diversity. But saying that, there are still many who appreciate diversity because they think it gives them opportunity to meet people from different culture, learning about different culture, trying new food, and maybe even learn new languages. And this is exact reason why, for some people, London really appeals to them. Now at this point, I want to talk about my personal point of view here, which I've never really heard anyone talk about, and I think maybe the quantity of foreigners and immigrants are not the sole problem here, but integration. Because I've seen some immigrants or foreigners moving to the UK and they just don't want to integrate. They don't want to learn the British culture. They don't want to eat British food, which is absolutely fine. Food is personal preference, but I think it's really important to learn the culture. Or some people don't even attempt to speak English. As someone who lived in several countries and know people who actually moved overseas to Asia, I feel like integration is really important and something that I highly promote. I do feel like this is a way to show respect to the local people, and at least I feel like trying to learn the language will be very beneficial because then you can understand the culture better, which you need to really, because that is the place that you'll be living in. London steals share of national investment in infrastructure. Now this one is interesting, something I never really thought about before. And the truth is, of course, London does receive more capital investment comparing to other parts of the UK, but it is also because London is a capital city. However, it receives more than 20 times higher than the North East, which receives the less investment, which is quite a staggering number. And not only that, more than half of the UK investment in transport goes to London. I mean, after seeing these numbers, I really do start to understand why there are hates and dislikes. However, there is also an argument that because London is a capital city, it needs to accommodate more people, so it needs to bring the infrastructure up to speed, and especially in transport. But then at the same time, this is public funds, so shouldn't it be split in a more fairly manner, such as, I don't know, based on income per capita, in which London's income per capita is only twice as much as the Northeast. Perceived unfriendliness. London is very fast-paced, and honestly, I feel like every day there's always too many things to do and not enough time to do them. And honestly, if I could get slightly less income and a bit more time, I would seriously consider it. Life in London is a combination of stressful work environment, spending an hour each way commuting to work, paying 40% of your income towards the rent, childcare costing arms and legs. So yeah, there are many things to think about and it is very stressful. So generally, people don't really have time for a chit-chat. And with that, people outside of London, when coming to London, they take this as that Londoners are being rude and unfriendly. So with this point, I think it is kind of half true. I don't think Londoners are rude and unfriendly. It's just everyone has got a lot on their plate. They have a lot on their mind. So at the end of the day, they just want to get home and enjoy their peace and quiet at home. However, there are also some occasions that I do think that people are being friendly on purpose because they're just not bothered. Because London being what it is, there are people coming and going all the time. So for some people, they just don't want to make an effort because they know that this is not the person that I will know forever. It's not like when you're in a small town where your neighbor is going to be your neighbor for the next 20 years. Over here, I don't even talk to my neighbor because I might be moving in 3 years or 4 years, like who knows? People comes and goes. And here comes the last one, and please don't hate me, but it is jealousy. This is what people say, this is what I've heard, this is what I've read, so I'm just a messenger, don't blame me. And there are a few reasons why. Due to the fact that London receives an unequal amount of investment, which we already talked about, together with the fact that there are a lot of high-paying corporations who are based in London, it makes London a very rich city, and it is bound going to get richer and richer. Secondly, as individuals, we may be a bit jealous of how much people in London earn. Personally, myself included, when I was living in Cheltenham, when I started to look for a job in the UK, salary, I saw how much the pay was in London comparing to Cheltenham, and I was quite jealous, I'm not gonna lie, because it is just much more. However, knowing what I know now about London, about the cost of living, about the cost that you have to pay in order to earn that money, I am not sure if I will be jealous anymore. Apart from being jealous for the wealth that is going on in London, there is also maybe a sense of jealousy for people that actually would love to live in London, however they can't because London is so expensive, the cost of living is so high. Unfortunately, they've been priced out of the city, which is a big shame. And for those people, many will say to me that living in London is a privilege, and for that I would agree. However, at the same time, it comes with a very high price tag. But hey, what do I know? I am just a foreigner. If I missed the mark somewhere, then please let me know in the comments. And if there are reasons that you know that I haven't mentioned in this video, do let me know as well. I appreciate all your support, guys. I love you lots, and I'll see you next week. Bye.